So, what exactly is nonverbal communication? The textbook Interpersonal Communication Building Rewarding Relationships defines nonverbal communication as all aspects of communication other than words. So, examples would be facial expressions, body movements, appearance, tone of voice, etc., things like that. So, a more basic definition that I've come up with is basically nonverbal communication is communication that is not conveyed in word form. So, different characteristics of nonverbal communication would be that one, it's always occurring, and two, it is non reversible. Non reversible meaning that once it happens, it can't be taken back. So it is also said that 65 to 93% of all communication types is conveyed nonverbally. And I think that this is actually really important to understand because most people think that the verbal message is much more important or recognized in communication, but it has gone to show in studies that nonverbal communication is a lot more important than people had originally thought, and more people are likely to believe nonverbal communication rather than verbal communication that's coming out of someone's mouth, which I think is very important to understand. So there are 8 different nonverbal codes that I had already mentioned earlier, but they are facial communication, kinesics, haptics, proxemics, paralanguage, physical appearance, artifacts, and chronemics. The later videos will go more in depth on what these things are and different examples of them and how they apply to nonverbal communication. So, what can you do to improve nonverbal communication? That's a very important skill, I think, to have. And one main thing is just to practice. Practicing nonverbal communication is really important because sometimes when we're talking with people we know or even people we don't know, acquaintances, best friends, spouses, whatever, anything like that, it's really hard to actually understand what they're conveying nonverbally. They might be saying one thing but meaning something different with their nonverbal cues. So I think it's really important to practice this, talk with people, take courses like this, take communications courses, and just relate to different people. Practice by talking, like conversing with people, reading their verbal cues with their nonverbal cues, see if they match up, to see if they're lying or telling the truth. I just think that it's really important to stress this, and practicing even throughout this course has made me a better communicator than I was in the past. And the second way to improve nonverbal communication, I believe, is to understand cultural differences between people of 2 different cultures. It's easier, I think, in some instances to understand nonverbal cues from people in your own culture because you grew up in the same place, you kind of understand the cultural norms of that society. But say, for example, someone from one culture and another culture, whether it be religious, social, ethnic, anything like that, different cultures have different norms, different nonverbal cues meaning different things. So I think that it's really important to realize that something in America might not be acceptable in another culture. For example, people in America like to do this, meaning come here, but in other societies it's meant to be kind of a motion that you would give to a dog or something kind of derogatory. So I think it's important as Americans especially to realize that people from other countries and other cultures do not do things exactly the way that we do it here in America. So that's just a brief overview of nonverbal communication. I defined it for you, gave some characteristics, gave how important it was, the nonverbal codes, and how to improve on it. So basically this is just the first video, and then I hope that you can learn some more from the other videos and more in-depth characteristics on each category that falls under nonverbal communication. Thanks.